Nandini, and to all of you for having invited me here to chair this session. As I already said that I don't go to chair sessions and I am a researcher and speaker. I love to do my research and go and deliver lectures, but I couldn't say no to Yankan. We have been such dear friends like siblings. We grew up together in a way. And also I wanted to know all of you, it's a very, very important subject. Folklore is close to my heart. I have been working a lot on folklore studies in IGNOU. I'll just take 2 minutes before I ask the speakers to come to the topics. When I came to IGNOU as a reader in English in 2006, IGNOU, which is world's largest university in terms of students intake, we have to need assessment survey to check what kind of research and pedagogy and teaching is going on in IGNOU. And as a part of English department, when I did my research, I found that we had subjects like American literature, British literature, and Canadian studies, Australian, everything under the sun that comes under English studies. So we had all those subjects as a part of our syllabus, but we didn't have folklore studies, especially Indian folk literature, which is so important and which is so such seminal to our growth. We grew up with folklore studies. And I found that we didn't have folklore studies as a part of our BA or MA or any syllabus. And in 2009 I proposed 2007 I proposed one PG diploma in folklore studies. And I had to really undergo a lot of hurdles. People asked me the first question, why folklore? And when it comes to folklore studies, mostly our elites and our academia, they treat folklore as a part of our marginal studies. They think that folklore is out there, something in a museum, to watch it from a distance and to marvel in the glory of its beauty from a distance. But if you get involved in folklore studies and you do some real research, you write papers or you do courses, then you will know what be in the mainstream. That is the idea of our academia, which is most unfortunate. So as a young teacher, I was so enthusiastic about folklore. And I was advised by many people, don't get into that. You can read folk tales for pleasure. You can read it out to your child. My son was too small at that time. They said you can read out folk tales to your child. But if you get into this kind of research and design and develop such courses, you will be out of the mainstream. And then also I had to go through so many difficult school boards and academic councils, standing committees. Dr. Yankan and my other colleagues from IGNOU, they know how difficult it is to design and develop courses, academic programs, because a lot of money, a lot of field work, and a lot of need assessment survey, everything is involved while you design and develop a program. And I had to undergo so many rejections. Some school boards rejected. They sent it back to faculty for discussion. So every time I had to really prove myself. I came from Nandini doing a PhD, and he has already talked so much about my career. I have always been a gold medalist and all that. And I did my PhD, everything in the so-called mainstream. So I had nothing to do with folklore when it came to my training. I was not a trained folklorist, but I read folklore out of my interest, and I did some research work. And I had to go through so many tests, so many failures, but ultimately in 2009 I designed and developed that PG diploma in folklore and culture studies, and it is launched successfully. But let me tell you, now I am in the mainstream because of folklore. Folklore has taken me to places. Immediately after that program was launched, you just Google folklorists and you will get my name in the top. And so many universities are inviting me to design their programs on folklore studies. Mauritius University, Mahatma Gandhi University from Mauritius, I went there. I designed their certificates and diplomas and some other programs on folklore studies. I'm taking the copyright from IGNOU. I also helped them to design their courses, and so many foreign universities and so many Indian universities, even Karnataka Folklore University. So a lot of people noticed me not only as a creative writer but also as a folklorist. So that is one side of the story. And the other side of the story is I have learned a lot from folklore. Folklore has humbled me. I have got to know the indigenous people, their struggle, the marginal, the truly marginal. I have got to know them, I have understood them through folklore. So I must tell all of you, since you all are young researchers, it's a very, very important subject, and it's like never ending. So many layers it has, so many varieties of subjects, so many, so much is there in folklore studies, in folk music, folk dance, folk cuisine, indigenous medicines, it's a traditional knowledge system. So the more you get into folklore, the more you feel how small I am in this vast world of knowledge. It's like that. So folklore has humbled me now, folklore has taken me to places, and I have a very special feeling for Northeast India. Some of my research scholars, they come to me, they approach me with some synopsis on folklore studies, and I make it a point to take those students. One student came to me with a synopsis on the folklore and folk life of of Northeast India, with special reference to Y.D. Thomsey. So Thomsey is a writer who was never translated, and he was not known in the mainstream, so-called mainstream, I would say. He was restricted to Northeast India. I asked my research scholar, who is a filmmaker, he's a filmmaker and an actor in Assam. I told him that first you have to translate it. You have to translate all the texts from Assamese to English. Since I cannot read Assamese. I can only, I can understand. If you speak or you sing, I love Assamese songs, I can even sing a few, but I cannot read it. So I said, first you have to translate it and show me. So now he had contribution twice, a double contribution you can say. First he translated all the writings of Y.D. Thomsey into English. I got those published. This is my journal about which Chandan was talking. Even I expect all of you to contribute to this also. This is a UGC approved journal, and I am the founder and chief editor. So I published his writings first in English. Then we showed those to the author, Y.D. Thomsey, and he was very happy. Because now they are published on the national level and people are getting to know him. And the next contribution from my research scholar was writing a research paper on the folklore and folk life. You know that the Vishkanya tradition, so many other folk traditions of Northeast India. He actually did a lot of research, he went to the places, he did interviews with people, did some field study. Folklore is a very visual thing. You have to do field work, a lot of field work you have to do. So he did everything. When it comes to research supervision, I am a very, very strict guide. So I make the students really work hard. So that at the end of the day, they are proud of themselves. They don't have to make me proud. I have already done my bit. So I make them really work hard. And then he has contributed a lot, and now I am publishing his PhD thesis in the form of a book by contributing a few more chapters. So this is how I try to contribute to folklore studies, and especially to Northeast India, because Northeast India is really rich. We need to expose them. We need to bring them from there and expose them, their rich cultural tradition, their knowledge system, and the people who are so simple at heart. They need an exposure, and I think I'm really trying my best to help them that way. So, one of the issues of my journal would be devoted to folklore of Northeast India. If Dr. Nandini is willing to be the special editor for that issue, I would really welcome him, or if any one of you is also willing to be the special guest editor and give me at least 15 research papers on folklore of Northeast India, one issue will be published. So that is my announcement. And now I am eagerly looking forward to listen to the wonderful speakers sitting here. I can already see that they are prepared. I will not really block, some research that they have done, and now it's up to them to speak, and I am here to learn. Folklorists are always learners and researchers. We are not scholars but researchers. Agree. Thank you. So the first speaker is Dr. Walunir. Topic is trends and issues of folk life, folklore and folkloristics. It sounds really interesting. And about him, Dr. Yandan has already given some introduction. He seems to be quite a famous and a very popular person. I am eagerly looking forward to
Can I start? Thank you very much, Dr. Yandan, Professor Nandini, Sahoo, scholars and professionals of different fields. Thank you for coming. Yes, I'll talk about trends and issues in folk life, folklore and folkloristics. Of course, without specific reference to any area, but yet drawn a lot from my research on our folk tales. When I did my research on of folk tales. I did it very happily and also submitted very happily in the sense that there was much engagement with any burning issue. But then over the years, I've realized that there are lots of issues that folklorists need to know and be aware of. So here I am going to talk about some issues which have been really bothering me and which I've been really throwing it open in such forums for the last 2-3 years. I'm not saying that I have answers to this, so please do not expect answers to this question that I have been throwing out. So I think these issues are good enough for us to take home. In brief, let me start like this. Traditionally organized groups of people in their plausible ways tell, live out their practices and transmit them orally and visually from generation to generation. This corpus of life and lore can be called folklore and folklife. Within such traditional enclosures, folklore itself is folklife and folklife is folklore. Now what is engagingly interesting is the events of rupture of enclosed borders of folklife and folklore by so-called modern forces, and also the post-encounter and metamorphosis of folklore. Now, having said that, should folklorists and folklorists engage with folklife and folklore in its enclosed natural milieu, or engage with its post-rupture event of becoming? Does transcription do justice or damage to an otherwise living corpus of life and knowledge? What happens to meaning and significance when the life of folklore is frozen in the rhythm and digitized forms? Besides, a shift is noticed in documentation of folklore, shift from public domain to privatization of folklore materials, that is institutionalization, privatization and control of an otherwise free public knowledge. In the contemporary, there's also an unusual desire to document unexplored virgin relics and exotic folklore materials, especially to do with the Nagas and of the northeast India. So it is very interesting to understand the nature and motive of desire that inhibits the outsider to document the unknown. Also, in this mode of knowledge production, the virgin area seldom becomes an ethnographic laboratory. And besides, the legitimate methods of modern disciplines, by virtue of being empirically scientific, are unquestionably powerful knowledge, unquestionably produce knowledge, and thereby this knowledge is produced real. Now about folkloristics, initially it was associated with the study of the old and relics as opposed to current, and its main thrust was documentation of perishing or bygone cultures. If folklore then forms are seen as relics, it is almost certain that they engage with it is almost certain that they only respond to a past lived experience. But in the contemporary, folklorists engage with continuities and relevance of traditional knowledge, dynamics and complexity of transmission, dissemination and perpetuation, and consequent hybrid forms of knowledge in the wake of modern forces and changing world. I'll be picking up on a few of these issues. I'd like to look at the democratic nature of folklore vis-a-vis documentation. When I say democratic nature of folklore, I'm looking at the natural milieu, which of course is fast perishing or no more. Oral and visual is life, and life is oral within that natural milieu we're talking about. Orality should not be mistaken here with what Walter J. Ong calls secondary orality in terms of telephone, radio, television, other electronic sound devices. Folklore is a participatory system of knowledge which evolves within and circulates amongst members of the folk. The oral and the visual mediums ensure participation of the members of the group. This participatory nature of public gives the power to speak, perform, and show, and in the event of speaking, performing, and listening, they represent themselves, and the corpus of knowledge that's produced represents the group. The oral and visual forms, along with their intangible meanings, are captured by powerful modern forces, especially the rhythm technology and digitization. Here we have to remember that folklore has always been there since time immemorial. So if we say that Homo sapiens existed for 50 million years, then folklore is also 50 million years old, whereas our modern so-called disciplines and writing technology is hardly 1 or 2 centuries old. Transcription of oral forms of folklore to written and digitized folklore freezes the life in folklore materials. Then what is the fate of meaning and significance in transmutation when life of folklore is frozen and gets transmuted into some other forms? Talking about natural milieu, I'd like to look at performance. The act of performing folk dance or folk drama or folk riddles or narration of folk tales are multifaceted, more intricate than telling. Performance, to its credit, includes designated space intrinsic to narrator, audience, and context. Performance is conceived in the context of social interaction as a unifying thread tying together the marked segregated spheres of verbal behavior into a unified act in the form of speaking. The cultural milieu will consist of the set of cultural norms and interactional behavior, the community that govern the conduct of performance. An important quality of a performer of verbal art is oratory skill. It is the standard requirement for a performer to properly perform, to have accurate knowledge of culture and oral tradition. Every word is accompanied by a certain action, gesture, expression of the performer. The action of the performer is multiple, includes speech, facial expression, gesture, posture, etc. Gestures and body language substantiate performance. As a case, the narrator sometimes play out multiple roles of given folk tales, and the narrator assumes different characters as such takes up multiple roles. Even the audience plays a very important role, which in fact intervenes and limits the performer in many ways. The intervention of audience in the flow of performance takes place in the form of clarification and correction, sometimes in many contexts. Also, the performer in a state of flow finds himself in control of his actions and the environment, the cultural milieu. The interaction of audience and intervention of the performance is defined by the nature of his distance from the performer. In the case of stage performance, the performance act cannot be determined or intervened by the audience. However, in folktale narration in many societies, the audience can intervene. This intervention level initiated by the audience in folktale performance goes beyond nodding of head, laughing, and so on and so forth, along with the raconteur. This is possible chiefly because of the proximity of the performer. So without the listener's intervention, the recounter's act would become flat. The listener responds to the activity of the recounter through gestures of approval and disapproval. This participatory listening or viewing, where gestures and expression are the forms of interventions, are important factors in creation of meaning of the folk tales. And so even a lot of negotiation takes place during that kind of performative act, the scheme. And so in this natural milieu, environment plays a lot of role here, which includes not only the audience but also the cultural context in which a tale or a drama is performed. Now, so the question I asked in the beginning is, what happens to the life of folklore when that life is documented, when that life is recorded, when that life is written down, when that life is digitized? And just because that life gets frozen, are we going to let it die? Or are we still going to document? So we need to decide what to do, because the problem is they are fast perishing, and the best way is to document again. But in the process of documenting, I say that they get frozen. And so what is again the meaning, the significance of freezing, right? Freezing folklore materials. So that is one question that we can address, not me. I'm still trying to find answers. Of course, there are many questions, but then the second last question is, there seems to be an unusual desire to document unexplored virgin relics. For that matter, in the 19th and early 20th century, Nagaland, for that matter, Northeast, and especially Nagaland, became a huge ethnographic laboratory where, like G.B. Mills and others, Hutton and others, produce lots of specimens, Naga specimens. And even today, people from the West come and try to find Hutton's specimen of the Sima Naga. G.B. Mills specimen, maybe I'm one of them because I have a flat nose and all this. But I'm not this fair and beautiful lady. So sometimes these regions become ethnographic laboratories, you see, and then specimens are created. So what I'm talking is the kind of, or the nature of epistemic violence that's created by, or through the construction of another episteme, which rather others and otherwise marginalized other region or people. So relics, and another problem is relics and tradition. It is institutionalized, it is privatized. The public no more can participate in the perpetuation and dissemination of folklore because it becomes privatized. The access becomes very difficult because they have to now buy them. Right? They're privatized, they're protected by copyright issues and all this stuff. So there's one issue. But that doesn't mean that we should stop doing that. So how do we intervene? So we need to look at ways of intervening here. Right? And another problem is the modern, so-called modern subjects, right? And the knowledge produced through the different methodologies of the different subjects and the mediums are so powerful that any knowledge produced out of it is legitimized. The medium called camera, recorder, the pen, and the methodology of photography or ethnography, histography, or even folkloristics becomes the basis of legitimacy of the object it captures or collects, because these methods are so-called scientific. So they are so powerful that any knowledge collected or produced through them are passed as real. So it calls for the researcher to use these powerful mediums and disciplines with a lot of responsibility and effectivity. What follows is, right, what should follow is we need agencies to synthesize these undercurrents. And besides, local bodies and researchers, organizations can do collaborative research. Now, when I say collaborative research, I'm also trying to find ways of collaborative research. The other day I was talking to a professor in mass communication, and then we discussed at length that if ethnographers, folklorists, and historians come together with the filmmakers, then that kind of collaborative effort will be able to give some intervention in some of these questions. So then, to conclude, folklorists cannot possibly copy or reproduce absolutely authentic natural forms of folklore because they are either not there or the natural milieu is not possible, but every folklorist can endeavor to be faithful to the natural essence of folklore materials in their act of collection and documentation of folklore materials. It is important for contemporary folklorists to be as close as possible to the natural folkloristic texts. Field workers ought to adopt tools and skills related disciplines to carry out responsible interdisciplinary approach in documentation and research of folklore materials. So there's a lot of scope in research to engage with folklore beyond tradition and relics, and in fact an ongoing effort of folklore research worldwide in the contemporary is to dissolve the earlier notion of frozen time and frozen texts. So because in folklore forms are seen as relics, it is almost certain that they respond only to the past experience. What remains to be researched is to see folklore beyond the concept of late relics and antiquities, so that there is a continual attempt of folkloristic historians, ethnographers, sociologists to look for contemporary relevance of folklore, the dynamics and complexities of transmission, dissemination and perpetuation, and also in the process, or rather within the transitory phase of becoming, right, is also a space, a very interesting space of engagement. Thank you very much.